Hello everybody and welcome back to the show. In this episode I am continuing with PneumaticCraft, so I'm going to pick up right where I left off from the previous episode. The next thing I want to make is this pressure gauge tube module. And as you can see there, it says this module emits a redstone signal of a strength dependent on how much pressure the tube has in it, or how much pressure the tube is at. So let me make one of these real quick. I've placed the pressure gauge tube module right here on this particular tube. As you can see, it's aimed at the 4, and as we know, we've got about 4 bars of pressure in our entire system. Again, this emits a redstone signal based upon that level of pressure. And if you have a mod like Wayla installed, which shows you the redstone level that you're at, that can of course be very useful. But the description tells you what it does. The formula it shows is the redstone is equal to 2 times the pressure. In other words, the pressure is about 4, so this should be at 2 times 4, which is 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there's no redstone there, so that is correct. So it shows it at 2 times 4 is 8. I can use this to my advantage. Remember, I have to make sure that the system doesn't blow up, and getting to 5 bars of pressure runs the risk of an explosion. On the other hand, if I detect when I get to at least 4 bars of pressure and then tell these devices to stop working, that can of course be very useful to me. There is redstone behavior, which means it can enable on any signal, high signal only or low signal only, etc. And that means that I can use this and send a redstone signal to tell these compressors to stop burning when I get up to a certain level of pressure. This is why I'm not very good with redstone, but I needed to invert the signal in order to send a signal. So essentially what's happening is this pressure gauge, what was it called again? Boy, I can't even remember now. This pressure gauge tube module emits a redstone signal according to how much pressure is in it times 2. At 4 times 2 is 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which will send it just to here. So if it's 4 or above, this block will get powered, but if it's less than 4, this block will not get powered. When the block is not powered, this redstone lamp will be on, which will send a signal through here to these air compressors, which are set to run on a high signal. So right now the redstone lamp, the redstone torch is off, which means these guys are not doing anything. They're not burning any charcoal because they've been told that the pressure is already high enough. If I let some pressure out of the system like this, and I'm gonna let this, let's see, oh, I gotta do this one. Yeah, there we go. I connect this back up, the entire system will stabilize itself. Stabilize itself at 4. So let me do it again. Once I disconnect this pipe, this thing is on its own. Remember, this system isn't losing any air, it's still at 4. That's what's happening. So plug it back in, and there you go. Now you can see that the amount of pressure in the entire system dropped below 4, which means this redstone torch came on, which means all of these guys started burning their charcoal. So now if I put charcoal in each one of these, like so, they will burn charcoal until they get up to the 4 bars of pressure, and then they will stop. So I'm going to watch this just to make sure that actually happens, because this is very critical that this work properly. And I'm watching, and there you go, it did stop. And the reason I'm stopping it at 4 bars of pressure instead of 5 is because 4 is pretty much what I need to make anything in the pressure chamber. But if there's a last piece of charcoal that's burning, if I stopped it at 5, it could possibly go over, and I don't want that to happen. Now this is the basic air compressor, and as you can see, it generates pressure up to about 5 bars. There's something called an advanced air compressor, and I believe that will generate pressure up to 10 bars. I'm not entirely certain. that does require an advanced pressure tube, which has to be made via an assembly process, and that's something that I'll be doing down the line. There are also liquid compressors and advanced liquid compressors. The liquid compressor, I believe, works via liquids like lava and anything like that. If you have a mod that adds various kinds of liquids, that's the thing to use. There's also a flux compressor, which uses RF and converts that into air, compressed air. That is something. That is something that's fairly new. It's not been in stuff that I've seen yet, but as you can see, it requires a lot of stuff that all requires this assembly setup. So it's something that I will want to make because it will make my life easier. But in the meantime, I'm basically stuck with using basic air compressors. Okay, the next thing I want to look at is this plastic mixer. Now, I've not seen this before, so I'm not entirely sure how it works. But according to this, it is used to melt down plastic into liquid plastic, which can then be mixed with other colors of plastic or dye to create other colored plastics. Okay, that is semi-important to me, and I'll explain why. Let me get something I have a lot of, like these flying flower seeds. And let's just go ahead and make 8 of them, just for the heck of it. And I'm going to turn these into whatever color of plastic they become. Let's just throw that in there. Okay, so I have what looks like 8 pieces of white plastic. I've put some lava underneath this plastic mixer because it said it did need some heat. So if I take a piece of this and put it here, I'm assuming, that should melt down into liquid plastic. Okay, that makes sense. So if I want to convert it to, let's say, it said to use a dye, and my inventory is crammed full of junk. So let me use, back over here. Let me get a poppy and turn that into a couple of red, or one red dye. I wonder if that's new. Probably is, and I missed the fact that it only makes one. Anyway, I'll put that in, say, here. And that is now, okay, and that is now liquid plastic that is red. So how do I turn that back into regular plastic? Let's see. Too much heat. Remove heat sources and optionally add blocks that remove heat like ice. Then the plastic will cool down into item form. Okay, that's kind of a hassle, but let me take out the lava like so. This will start to cool down. What if I don't have any ice? I could try to go farm some, but I do have snow. What if I put down a snow block next to it? Make a snow block real quick, like so. And this is, temperature is kind of coming down. Snow block. Coming down faster? Maybe? Can't really tell. Oh, it looks like, yeah, it actually looks, I can actually see it, the number dropping. So I'll wait for this to finish cooling down so I can get my plastic out of there. Okay, this is cooled down and it gave me a piece of white plastic, which is pretty cool. Honestly, this is going to sort of overpower things. I went out and got some more snow for me, and I will tell you why. These the red plastic is from fire flower seeds, and I am guessing that I do not have any of those. I almost guarantee it, but let me look through real quick. Flying, yeah, I don't have any of those. And that is because the fire flower seeds are found in the nether. And as you remember from my exploits in the nether, I could not last on the surface for very long at all, much less have time to go look for fire flower seeds. So in a lot of ways, this is going to be overpowering. This is going to allow me to be a little bit overpowered with this mod. I was afraid I would have to go get these fire flower seeds from the nether and brave the nether. These are used for all kinds of different parts in the mod. So this means I won't have to do that. I can use any of these other numerous other seeds that I have to make their colors of plastic and then convert them into whatever other colors of plastic I might want to make them into. So nice to have, but maybe, as I said, a little overpowering because it doesn't make you have to do any of the sort of running around and finding all of the different flowers. And also I don't have to go into the nether to get the red flowers or even have to get the end flowers, which I think you were supposed to have to get from, where are they? Here we go. From Endstone, or from the end, I should say. Not entirely certain, but anyway, yeah, this will make things really easy for me, and that is really nice. So I need to clean some of this stuff up here. So here's what I've done. I made myself another plastic mixer. As you can see here, I have one plastic mixer that is above a source of lava, and it is kept at a constantly high temperature. And this plastic mixer is surrounded by snow, and so it's kept at a constantly cold temperature. And I've hooked these together with some fluid transport pipes. So what I can do is take a piece of plastic like this piece of white plastic here, and if I put this in here, it will very, very quickly melt down into liquid plastic, and it's still liquid white plastic. So if I get a rose red dye, or like so, plop that into here like that, it will dye it to be a red liquid plastic. Now I can activate, because I have this fluid transport pipe set to only activate when it receives a signal. So I can activate this. This will quickly drain out, turn it back off, and it's flowing into here. And once it completely flows into here, it will turn into the red plastic, just like that. So I have a semi-automatic way of creating the colors of plastic that I might need anytime that I need them. Over here with the compressor setup, I have created myself some dimensional transceivers. These are hooked up to the charcoal farm over there, and so they keep this chest full of charcoal. Those feed into the air compressor, so these are kept with charcoal, and as I showed before, I'm keeping it at just a little bit above 4 bars of pressure. I move things around so that the pressure valve for the pressure chamber is on top, and so I have an input on this side, output on this side. Whatever I want to compress, I can put it into this chest. It will get taken by the conduits in and then back out, and then I've got whatever the output might be. I've also put in some speed upgrades on the pressure chamber interfaces. You can kind of see how much faster that is when it opens up. There's 4 of them in there. These speed upgrades are expensive. Each one requires 4 potions of swiftness and a cake. So they actually took a little bit to make. I made a brewing stand to make them. The PneumaticCraft mod has quite a bit of things that you can make, such as elevators. You can even make pneumatic doors. There's air cannons, which will shoot items across your map or whatever. There's various different things that you can make. But for some of the more high-tech items, I need to make a printed circuit board. Now, making a printed circuit board is a fairly complex process, so I'm going to show you what it takes. The first thing I need to make is an empty printed circuit board, an empty PCB, and that's made by putting a piece of green plastic and a piece of compressed iron in the pressure chamber at about 1.5 bars of pressure. So I can put that in here, and they'll both get sucked in there fairly quickly. There we go. And I end up with an empty PCB, and it says right on here that it now needs to be put into a UV light box. The first step in making a UV light box is the PCB blueprint. Talk about expensive. 8 emeralds around a piece of compressed iron. And I've got 14 emeralds. Shnikes, that's a lot. Now, once I made this PCB blueprint, I got this message. The author of PneumaticCraft does want to have a villager, as you can read here, which would be called a mechanic, where you would actually have to get this item by trading for it instead of being able to make it. So the ability to make it is a temporary recipe, still an expensive one, at least for me. For most people, getting emeralds is not that difficult. And in fact, I could, I guess, go over to the village and trade for emeralds. But anyway, let's continue. And there's the UV light box. It does need compressed air, as you can see. So now I have the UV light box. A speed upgrade on this will of course make things go faster. I have one extra speed upgrade. I might as well use it. And now I take that empty PCB, put it in there, and it will begin to expose the empty PCB to UV light, so it'll be ready to be etched. Now, as the empty PCB is exposed to the UV light, you can see that there's an etch success chance, which is at 22% and increasing. Etching is the next step of the process, and getting that success chance to 100% means I'm guaranteed it will etch completely. It does take time to get to that point, of course, and if you don't want to wait, you can take the empty PCB out sooner, but you then have, if I took it out at this point in time, I'd have a 28% chance of being successful in the next step. So, pretty much I can't see a reason why you'd want to do that. You might as well wait the time and thus be guaranteed that you're going to be successful in the next step. But as you can see that after it gets done, after it gets up to 100%, my next step, as it says on here, throw in etching acid to develop. So now I need to make some etching acid while I'm waiting for this to finish. Okay, to make the etching acid, which is made in the pressure chamber, like everything else in this mod, 2 spider eyes, 2 gunpowder, 2 rotten flesh, 2 of the green plastic, and a bucket of water. And when those combine, that should make a bucket of etching acid. There we go. Over here at the UV light box, the empty PCB is done. As you can see, my chance of success with etching is 100%, which is what I want it to be. So take that out. And of course, now it says I've got to throw this into the etching acid. I've just made a little hole in the ground here, put the etching acid into it, and the etching acid is now in there. The etching acid is, well, acid, so if you go in it, you will get damaged. Must take the damage off of your armor, or must adjust it for armor, I should say. But yes, you will take damage if you go into the etching acid. Now you take the empty PCB, you throw it into the etching acid, and then the etching process will be happening right now. You can at any point in time jump in there and get that PCB back out of there. So you can see here etching progress is at 6%. Now, here's the problem. The entire process of etching this PCB takes longer than 5 minutes, which means that this empty PCB can despawn if you don't periodically take it out of the etching acid. And of course, taking it out of the etching acid means having to jump into the etching acid, which means taking damage. Not a terribly wonderful thing to have to happen. However, I think I have a way of processing the empty PCB through the etching acid without it despawning, without me having to jump into the etching acid to get it. So let me figure out what I can do and let me set things up. All right, so here is my idea. I've turned the etching acid into a lazy river of etching acid. So my idea is take the empty PCB, throw it into the lazy river, and it will float down this way, all the way over to this hopper, which will pick it up, put it into the chest, run it back over to the open crate, which will drop it back down into the etching acid. And as long as it's in the etching acid, it will process, it will go through the etching process. So you can see it's at 28% right now. So let's let it go through the process. Oh, I picked it up by accident. Let's put it in here. You can see it drop down. So it's floating down the lazy river. Remember, it was at 28%. Once it gets through and it drops back down, I'm going to pick it up again and see where it's at. So there it goes. Pick it up. And you can see now it's at 34%. So this way, drop that back in there. The what is that called? The empty PCB will get etched as long as it's in the lazy river of etching acid. However, because it gets picked up by the hopper and it ends up in a chest, it will never despawn because it'll never be out in the world for that 5-minute limit. Now, of course, I've used the conduits and the open crate to do this, but I think if you weren't playing with Ender IO or the Botania for the open crate, you could do the same process probably with a combination of droppers and hoppers, and you would get the same effect. Now, it seems to be okay going around this corner. There might be issues with the corner process of this, but I think it will work just fine. Now, once this gets to 100% etched, I will show you the next step. And once it's done, the unassembled PCB is created. Now, what I can do is put the unassembled PCB, I didn't have one yet, so I couldn't set this up to begin with, but I'm going to set that up on a blacklist, meaning that the next time I do this, when the process is finished, that unassembled PCB should just sit in this chest. The next step is to turn the unassembled PCB into the printed circuit board. And to do that, I need 3 transistors and 3 capacitors. The transistors are made with black plastic, compressed iron, and redstone. The capacitors are made with the cyan, I think that's the cyan colored, with compressed iron and redstone, and of course in the pressure chamber. So let me make those. Once the transistors and the capacitors are completed, you can put everything together with the unassembled PCB, and finally, printed circuit board has been created. The printed circuit board is used in a lot of the advanced recipes for the PneumaticCraft mod. What I'm going to be working on next is creating the assembly line, and to do that I'll need to make the assembly controller, and as you can see that requires 3 circuit boards. In addition, I need to make a platform, IO units, laser, and drill, and all of those items require printed circuit boards as well. So I need to make quite a few printed circuit boards, but you've seen the process of what it takes to do that. I'm not going to go through all of that on camera, of course, but I'm going to make all of those so that I can get started with the assembly line, which will be the next thing I want to make with this mod. That's going to do it for this episode. Leave me a comment, tell me what you think about PneumaticCraft so far. I haven't touched on a lot of the things that can be done in PneumaticCraft, but you can kind of see what it entails and what it's all about. If you have questions, of course, feel free to ask. I'll try to answer them. But please leave me a comment. Tell me what you think. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I'll see you next time.